Good morning. It's still morning. Actually not. It's the afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Greg Wesley. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. I have the pleasure of welcoming you to Thrive On Collaboration and specifically Thrive On King. I want to first say thanks to Dr. Moria and also to Brandon Curry for asking me to invite you in. Just when I see people coming into the facility, it reminds me of why we went on our journey with the Thrive On Collaboration and why we wanted to be here in this particular building, and it's worked out. It's introducing people to another part of the community. It is also introducing you to the history of this building. I'll give a little background on that. And it's also bringing people from all walks of life together in one space. And guess what? You don't even know about it, but you make relationships and partnerships that are, I call intentional partnerships. And in some instances, you have these unintended collisions, and you make new friends, and you are able to start to tackle complex issues in our community. By show of hands, how many people have been here before? Okay, well, welcome and thank you for being here. And those who haven't, I'm going to just give a little bit of background. The Thrive On Collaboration and the Thrive On King building is a partnership between the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, the Medical College of Wisconsin, and Rural Capital in particular. We're the principals. Rural Capital developed the building. GMF is an anchor tenant on the 4th floor. The Medical College of Wisconsin is an anchor tenant on floors 2 and 3. We came together because we wanted to do something about having a tangible example of the commitments to equity, whether it's food access, which you see with kinship, whether it's with the health and wellness component that you'll see with Versity on the 1st floor here, whether it's with Maleka around early childhood education. They have an outstanding 15,000 square feet early childhood education facility here in this building, and whether it's around employment with JobWorks MKE. And then it's also bringing back a historic building that has meant so much to this community for so many years. And we're here for a generation, if not more. And we really wanted to demonstrate that when you collaborate, you can make a difference in community in a unique way. It's really called a place-based anchor institution strategy that we've been able to advance. In addition to that, it's catalytic. And what I mean by that is it's financially very viable, but also socially very viable. Every day that I come into this building now, I see people from all walks of life, as I said, interacting with people that they may have not met before, and in some instances they have, but they have a place to gather. We have 10,000 square feet of space here on this 1st floor that is open to the public Monday through Saturday. And you can just come in and you can exist. You can absorb the artwork and the history. And I would just tell you the artwork here is some of the best artwork in this community and is a reflection of community residents conveying to artists like Reginald Baylor or Evelyn Terry or Brad Bernard their hopes and dreams and aspirations for community. Many, many years ago in the early 1800s and throughout the 1900s, early 1900s, this area was the center of town for shopping, the Gilbert Schuster's building. And the display windows were where people came to see what was going on. Christmas holiday, Thanksgiving, Easter, and other major events. And now what we've been able to do is to take a dry storage warehouse that was underutilized and recreate it, and then have the artists reflect back what they have heard from residents in Halyard Park, in Harambe, and Brewers Hill, and what it means to be a resident who decided to anchor this community and allowed us to come back here and bring additional life to the facility. So I wanted you to kind of have that context, welcome you and thank you for all that you are doing. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Brandon for insisting that I make some time to be here. And thank you to Dr. Morey, who I worked with for a long time when I was at the Medical College in Wisconsin. So again, enjoy. I hope that you have a fantastic afternoon. And I'm going to end by saying thrive on. Take care.
Good afternoon. Greg is correct. I've asked him about 30 times if he would attend today. And I just want to say thank you, Greg, for making a point to be here. Really appreciate it. And so, for my opening remarks, I won't take too much time because I want to make sure we have an opportunity to focus on why we're all here. I also want to give all of you an opportunity to connect with us, ask questions, learn more about what we're doing, and hopefully network amongst yourselves so that you can continue to grow and evolve as well. But as we know, we're facing major crisis in regards to toxic stress, the impact that adverse childhood experiences are having on kids. We keep hearing about trauma. And at some point it gets to a point where you say, well, what are we going to do about it? Right? And a lot of individuals in this room, the work you do, the passion you have for community, specifically serving youth and kids is, it's amazing. It creates the platform for change for those kids and for those families. So in regards to the issues, the struggles, as we all know, it continues to evolve, doesn't it? It's not slowing down. Every day looks different. Trauma continues to impact people in so many different ways. And one of the things that we continue to do is use our values, which is an acronym for FACES, because we talk about trauma wears many different faces. We talk about fostering resilience, acting with empathy, cultivate change, establish trust, and serve others. The idea is that that's a cycle of support that continues on and on and on, from offering direct services to kids to professional development and workshops with other partners and community organizations in the communities we serve. But ultimately we do that by building relationships. How do we build relationships? Does anybody have an answer for that? You gotta earn trust. And trust takes time. I was thinking, I don't know why I was saying, it was 3 years that we've been in works of doing this longitudinal study in partnership with MCW and several school districts from Milwaukee Academy of Science, Brown Deer School District, Howard Fuller Collegiate Academy, and St. Francis. It's been a total of 5 years that we've committed to getting to this point today. And so to me, with all of you here in support, this is an opportunity to celebrate. Not what necessarily has been done, but what the hope is that we do moving forward. So you can't talk about the present unless you look at the past, right? But then the idea is then what are you going to do next? So I would like to acknowledge and give a round of applause to, we have MAS right there, individuals from MAS, which is Milwaukee Academy of Science. We have some representation from St. Francis School District. We also have Brown Deer School District here. I always have to highlight him when I see him. My old high school coach is here. And he's still coaching, and he looks exactly the same. So, Jim, how long have you been coaching?
This spring will be 46 years.
46 years. Give it up for Coach Matusa. So he's a living example of support, right? A foundation of love. He doesn't need to coach still. There's lots of other things that he could be doing, but he's passionate about helping those kids. And so that ties in with our mission. That's what it's all about. How do we find innovative approaches and ways to connect with kids, their families, and youth? And so to those partners that I mentioned, other partners that are here today, our missions are aligned, but there's still more for us to do, correct? So this is just the start. So as you listen to some of the findings, some of the things that we're going to discuss today, we're saying that we have to continue to evolve and get better because the struggles that these kids and families continue to evolve. So if you want to counteract that, you can't do things the same way over and over and you get the same results. So some of our programming that two of our programming options that we offered in the study include our Peak Team curriculum, which is our direct service SEO curriculum, and then a video game we developed called Brain Agents. Some of you might say, a video game? I'm sick of kids playing video games. Well, the idea was meet them where they are. Kids are interested in it, so we chose to figure out ways to meet them where they are, offer supports that go beyond just the classroom when they're not in front of us. Aren't you scared sometimes? When they have to go home, when they have to go back to situations they're born into, they can't control necessarily the environment, but they can control and make decisions that help them have potentially better outcomes. So with that said, I also want to acknowledge the Herbis family. They're not here today, but none of this would have been possible without them. We started working with just MAS on the study, and our main funder's like, it's not enough. So I was like, all right, so we got Dr. Moyer's like, let's add 3 more schools. It ended up being over 1,000 kids involved. We got 400 consents from parents. Leadership can tell you we were in the parking lots every morning to get signatures. But again, you had to earn the trust of those parents in order for them to do that, right? And so thank you for that. I want to also acknowledge Medical College of Wisconsin, individuals that have been with us for the last 5 years, planning, prepping, and collecting the data that we'll share today. And then can we also give a round of applause to the STRYV365 staff. So thank you all again for coming today. I'll pass it to Dr. Moyer. But again, our hope is as we go through the results and information today, we'll open it up for questions and we'll make sure everyone's out of here before 1 o'clock. Thank you for coming.
He's a big guy. Thank you so much for being here to celebrate STRYV365 and the important services that they offer to raise the well-being of kids in our community. I'm a pediatrician and a community engaged researcher. So for me, it's really fun to work with an agency that's focused on the well-being of kids and to do the evaluations to demonstrate what works and also how we can continually improve those programs and services. So we did an evaluation to look at the impact of that Peak Team program of coaching and mentoring and the Brain Agents video game in the 4 schools with the permission of parents and the assent of the kids as well, that they wanted to be part of this kind of study. And we're particularly focusing on the challenges that youth experiences, adverse childhood experiences. And then we counter it is with positive life experiences to help them appreciate their strengths and their assets, the goodness in their lives, build relationships, learn how to cope with stress, develop breathing skills through a video game. All of these things together make a real difference to overcome the challenges that face youth every day. So the things we looked at were self-image and self-awareness, coping skills and resiliency, relationships with peers, with teachers, with family members, in neighborhoods, and making good choices when they have options. And we want to look at not only the strengths and assets in these programs, but where are the gaps and how can we make them better, listening to the youth themselves as well as the teachers that observe their behaviors. This kind of project requires a big team. So here are just a list of a few of the really important players on our research team. Of course, in STRYV365, Dr. Brandon Curry, Dr. Paula Lumelski, Cody Hollowell, our coach mentors who are here in the room today, and many staff that make a difference. And at the medical college, we have faculty like myself and Dr. Gundecker, and also Rodney Sparapani, who's a biostatistician, helped us with a complex study design. Here today, we also have Tom Chelius and Cassandra Wright, who've been fundamental in helping with our project. And I'm particularly proud of having student research assistants. These are medical students, PhD students. For the med students, they would take 2 months in the summer full-time to help us with data gathering, with analyses. They acquired skills in doing community-engaged research that will be valuable for them as physicians in lifelong careers. So Maddie, Abby, Snigna, Salma, Liz, Cordelia, vital roles in doing our qualitative analyses. Garrett Bates and I have collaborated for years. We even had Tamara, Vanessa, and Angel, undergrads who came to us from 500 Stars and diversity training at the MCW program. And also quite important is Night City and Columbia College in Chicago. That's where David Antonoli and the game developers for Brain Agents are based. So the way we approach this is we've got 4 schools, and we have 1,600 kids at these 4 schools, grade 5 through 9, a couple years ago. And of course, a 2-year study, they became 6th through 10th graders, following them over time. And about 15% of the students left the schools. So we lose track of them in the research. And the participants were clustered by the school and by the grade, an extraordinarily complex task, and we're grateful for the schools to help us, as well as Paula and her team to connect with the youth to gather information. So we had 4 different groups of interventions. We would look at a semester of the kids getting peak team coaching, or they might get the Brain Agents video game, or they might get both of those services, or somewhere in a comparison group, a semester with none of these services. So over 2 years, we could see over time whether this made a difference in the lives of individual kids or groups of kids at the classroom level, and we're continuing to do analyses at all of those levels. And the social emotional learning outcomes we measured were with a survey instrument that was too long. It was about 40 items. So we got baseline sociodemographics, and we'd ask them after peak team, what did you like about it? Was it helpful? After Brain Agents, similar thing. And then we'd have some general questions about self-awareness, coping, relationships, those other key domains. And the way we got the information was surveys after every semester of exposure and before they started the program. We also did focus groups at the end of each semester with dozens of youth. And we also asked the teachers, what did they observe? Were there changes associated with program exposure? So now it gives me great joy to introduce Dr. Paul Lumelski, who's going to tell you more about our project.
I'm the shorty one of the group, so I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Can you all hear me? Yep. Good? Okay. So as Dr. Moyer alluded to, and also Dr. Curry shared, we had to definitely get a little creative in how we went about recruiting our student participants. We were really blessed to have almost 400 families and parents and caregivers consent to have their children participate in our study. We attended back to school events, open houses, sporting events at our schools. We were indeed at pickup and drop off lines. We sent out parent letters, information letters. We got creative with some of our school social media posts, newsletters. If there was a way that they communicated with their families, we wanted to be in there and share information about our study, and it worked. We got a really great student population and participant population as a result. Of those 400 parents who gave consent for their kids, over 300 students were very committed and completed 4 surveys across a 2-year window in giving us this baseline study, but also additional long-term study results to recognize trends and changes, to really understand the student population we're working with, and also reflect for what the dynamics and emotional stress they were bringing with them to the school campuses and also into the classrooms and the learning environments that they were in for most of their day. As you can see, we had a really great diverse demographic and racial background of our students, as reflected there. And as Dr. Moyer shared too, we really prioritized student voice. We had over 120 students participate in either focus groups and or interviews, and really kind of sharing their feedback, their thoughts, and their experiences throughout the study. Based on a lot of their feedback, especially with relation to the video game, that really helped us improve and expand the video game. David Antonioli and his team really took that feedback and made changes from year 1 to year 2, listened to what the students shared to make it more engaging and more dynamic, and really loved kind of seeing those changes in real time based on their insights and perspectives. You'll hear shortly from some of our leadership and teachers as well, with their perspectives and insights too, from being part of the study shortly. From that very first survey that students completed, this kind of set our baseline that we could kind of see and measure kind of where are our students at before we have them complete additional surveys and studies. As a result, there was some strengths that kind of showed current resilient practices that students were already using and engaging in their school space, and also really highlighted too some challenges that they were facing. Communication skills were high. Students were showing that they were already using some strategies for self-regulation. They were already kind of leaning on their peers for support. They were also kind of aware of where they were in life, felt they were on a good path and had a good structure system in their space. Additionally, over 50% too already shared that they were using kind of positive resolutions to resolve conflict in their school spaces through nonviolent and positive means. On the flip side, they also kind of brought to light some external stressors that our students were facing, grief, family dynamics and family struggles, and then also for our students who identified or expressed kind of feelings of depression or anxiety, we did have a built-in kind of referral system in which those students' names were passed along to their guidance counselors or mental health kind of workers on their school campuses to just do a check-in with them. How are they doing? Make sure they're on their radar and getting that additional support as was needed throughout the school year. We also did have a child psychologist on staff too, who did additional check-ins with our 4 schools guidance counselors and mental health team as well, just have another layer of support. So that's the kind of starting point for our students. Dr. Gunderker will share more insights from our student focus groups and interviews.
All right. So I get the distinct pleasure of sharing what we actually heard from students and from teachers who had participated in these programs. And so how this works, as you already heard from Paula, these are the results from interviews and focus groups with students. So these were professionally transcribed. And then our group of student researchers was really key to going through and coding, which is basically looking for what are the common themes that we're hearing from these students across different groups. And that's what I'm going to be sharing today. And so students' comments on the benefits of Peak Team, some of the big things were really the relationships that they developed with the coaches, and really that relationship over time. I am also a pediatrician, and we know from the data that one of the biggest things that mitigates the impact of adverse childhood experiences is a safe and stable caregiver and nurturing relationship, and oftentimes that can be a coach. And so I think that is one of those big things with Peak Team, is being able to provide that positive child experience through developing that relationship. The other thing we heard from students was the ability to start to develop some of those social emotional learning skills. And we grouped those in these 5 different groups. And so what we heard from kids after Peak Team was improved self-management skills. And so feeling like they were more willing to try new things, or maybe in the beginning they were a little hesitant and not sure. They were more likely to try those new things. They're more likely to be able to bounce back from setbacks and feel like they could come back. And so that's really that idea of starting to develop resilience. And then understanding how to control anger, manage stress, and really think before acting. And so a lot of that self-management kind of comes with developing those coping strategies. And so from a school setting, if a kid comes up and they have a conflict with another kid, rather than immediately going and starting like, oh, I'm going to punch you, or like, what are you doing? Being able to take a step back, take a big breath, or kind of think through some of those coping strategies and learn more nonviolent ways to be able to act. And so some of the coping strategies we heard most commonly from students were self-calming. And so sometimes students would talk about taking a big breath, listening to music. Some students like to journal and talk about their feelings that way, or exercise, or talk with a friend. The other thing that we heard is really one of the benefits of Peak Team was around decision making, and so helping students start to think about, how do I make responsible decisions? And some of that is balancing responsibilities, so the responsibility of being for work for some students, for school, for their family relationships and peer relationships, and then also starting to think about focus on goals. And so discussing goal setting, what does that look like, what is the benefit of that, and then being able to resolve conflicts nonviolently, which I've already brought up. The other big thing we heard was relationship skills. And so really improved relationship skills and an understanding on leaning on those support systems that they have in their life. So being able to lean on families and friends, having improved communication skills with teachers and with adults and their peers. And then finally, social connections. And so they really described very positive interactions that had resulted from Peak Team, and really a development of respect, and being really excited that Peak Team was coming that day to interact with them. So then the other program that we evaluated was looking at brain agents, and so that's the video game that was brought up earlier. And so in this video game, students go through a set of scenarios, and then it will take them through different social emotional learning techniques and ideas on how to address different situations through a video game. And so this is what we heard from students after they had played the Brain Agents video game. And once again, we group these around these 5 major ideas, which really go along with a social emotional learning framework. And so feeling happier, more optimistic after interacting with the game. From a self-management, again, really feeling like they felt more comfortable trying new things, being better able to cope with stress, bounce back. Many of them commented on learning to focus through breathing exercises, and so they were actually practicing these breathing exercises during the game, and then being able to apply them to their real life scenarios, and then being able to relax. From a decision-making standpoint, after going through the game, students told us they felt like they were able to think critically and make better choices and follow directions. And then from a relationship skills, they felt like they were more expressive. They were better able to talk about their emotions, talk about how they're feeling and where they're at. And then finally, from a social connection standpoint, really feeling like they felt like they could spread positive energy and feeling positive after interacting with the game. And then finally, we also did focus groups with teachers and school leaders and administrators. And what we heard specifically around Peak Team was really positive engagement from students. And so teachers and administrators would tell us that the students were really engaged. They really enjoyed the coaches coming in and doing Peak Team. They also felt like there was more emotional openness from students. And so students being able to, having demonstrated they're able to have more of those social emotional skills and be able to put those into practice. And then we also heard more positive relationships from teachers as well, which we also heard from students, but positive interactions and relationships from peer to peer, from peer to teacher, and even between teachers came out in some of the focus groups. And really, that really suggested the impact of this was a broader impact on positive school culture.
So our conclusion from our evaluation over 2+ years is that it showed the potential of these trauma-informed approaches, coaching and video game, to improving social emotional outcomes in children facing adversity. And that STRYV365's combination of physical activity, which gets the kids moving and having fun, really an important component of this unique approach. And the coaching and the digital gaming together offers something that could be scaled up. How do we go from 400 kids in a study, 1,600 at in 4 classes at 4 schools to other schools, other after-school programs, other communities, and continually learn from the feedback from youth and teachers. How do we make these programs even better? ACEs, unfortunately, are really common. They're very prevalent. And so countering it with positive things in kids' lives, like peak team and brain agents, we think really underscores the necessity to have more of these programs that build resiliency in youth and overall well-being. And one of the ways we disseminate is presentations. Another is through publications. So we have a paper that Abby led for us, working with teachers, published in Frontiers in Educational Psychology, the teacher's perspective on these programs. We have another coming out soon in the Journal of Child Adolescent Trauma, based on our pilot year study at Milwaukee Academy of Science a few years ago. We have 3 other manuscripts under review. Another we'll be submitting this fall based on complex regression analyses. And then we intend to do other analyses in the early fall, looking at things like coping skills, gender differences, cyberbullying.
Can we get a round of applause for saying we're published? Yes. Be excited. A lot of hard work and effort from so many people, so thank you for that. I'd like to ask Dr. Deb Kerr, Superintendent of St. Francis, to come on up, as well as Anthony McHenry, CEO for Milwaukee Academy of Science. We'll let them say a few words as well. Let's give them a round of applause. We also have, we all may need to stand up so he can jump in, the inventor of the Rainbow Leap, Leroy Butler, in the back. So we talk about some of the plans for the future. He is a part of that, so he wanted to say a few words here in a little as well. So after they speak, we'll go into a discussion, and we want you all to have a chance to ask questions. We will still be respectful of time and have you out by 1 o'clock. So thank you. Dr. Kirk, you want to start?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's just a pleasure to be here. And one of the areas that I think makes us feel so valued by STRYV365 is that we are mission aligned. Our mission is to empower our kids to achieve extraordinary success and lead in an ever-changing world. And when Dr. Curry talked about the values of STRYV365 with trust in developing relationships, our kids need an adult that they can trust and confide in. And you know, our teachers and staff are busy and tired. They are trying to develop relationships with all of our kids, but having a partner, we can't do this alone. We can't educate our kids alone. And STRYV365 has been a valuable partner to us, not only in my days in Brown Deer, but also in St. Francis Public School District. And they have created connections and relationships with kids that maybe those students might not have been able to do during the regular school day or through a certain activity. And so we've seen all the results of the pandemic because we've lived through it. Our kids are struggling with mental health issues, identity issues, not knowing how to make good decisions. For those of us who teach very small children, our 4 and 5K kids are having a great difficulty with self-regulation and management and making good decisions. And we're here to teach them how to do that. And so we've been grateful to have the STRYV365 partnership to work with our kids. And I'm excited we're doing another after-school program with our high school kids, because we are unique in St. Francis in that 50% of our kids are open enrollment from 60 different Metro Milwaukee schools. So we are working really hard to create this sense of belonging and that we are part of the St. Francis family. And so STRYV365 is going to help us do that. And we all know if kids feel safe, respected, and secure, then the outcomes are going to be off the charts. They are going to achieve at very high levels. So thank you very much.
transparency. I did not expect to be coming up to the mic on my own. Brandon, my good friend, I thought you were going to ask me a question. So bear with me and provide grace. I've been at Milwaukee Academy of Science for 9.5 years now, and one of the things that I recall thinking about in my early years and watching it develop over the preceding years was I watched our kids each year become more angry, sad, depressed, frustrated. I remember our K-4 babies their classroom was located right across from my office. The first day of school, they do what kids across the country do, right? They cry because they're scared or there's an uneasiness and there's a level of stress about going to this new thing that their parents have been talking about. And it's appropriate. What's not appropriate is what we see now is K-4 kids who on the first day of school and the 15th day of school and the 30th day of school, they're crying or they're yelling or they're cursing because they're angry and they're mad and they're sad. And that's our reality. 97% of the kids that attend Milwaukee Academy of Science are what's considered economically disadvantaged. They live on the north side of Milwaukee where there is far too much violence and volatility that leads to the trauma that we're trying to address. And so when I met Brandon at a conference 5 years ago and we started the conversations about how to best support our kids, the timing was perfect. What we're trying to accomplish at Milwaukee Academy of Science, yes, we have our mission statement and we have our vision statement, but our hope is really that our kids will graduate having received a high quality education and that they have the social emotional maturity to make good decisions when they leave our school. And the work that we're doing collectively with STRYV365 is preparing them for just that, because one without the other won't work in a city like Milwaukee. And so their work, particularly with our young people, and helping them to own, understand, and take mastery of their emotions and be able to communicate them, one, helps them to stay in class so that they can access that high quality education. But equally important, when they graduate from our school, they'll be able to make quality decisions and manage their emotions in an even more volatile setting. And so the work we're doing is not only mission aligned, it's life-saving, and so I'm happy to be in partnership and proud of the results that we've been able to have as a partner.
Anthony, I owe you some wings at Garfield's 5.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
You like the catfish too, right? I got you covered, man. I thought I'd tell them. I thought I'd prep them. But now we want to open it up to you all for questions. We'll take the next 10 minutes and try to answer questions. Cody will come around to you, so just raise your hands if you have questions or even a comment or something you want to say.
My name is Dennis Wren. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the amazing speech, by the way, Rick. I have a quick question. How or when do we get to the parents and get them involved into the actions and the courses that the children are taking in STRYV365?
Anyone want to take that?
Yeah. The win at Milwaukee Academy of Science is, I would answer two different ways. The engagement, the way that we rolled this out at Milwaukee Academy of Science was trying to give the parents as much information as possible, not only about what they're going to receive, but critically important, helping them understand why their children may be responding to things the way that they are. What I hope happens is, why do they, the parent,
who far too often also grew up in traumatic communities, had trauma in their lives, why they may respond to the things the way that they do, which then impacts their children. The other thing that we're in conversations with, and maybe this will come up in another question, but we really kind of expanded the services of STRYV365 to a train-the-trainer model, and we're doing some other things with our sports. But I think the next thing is directly providing these type of supports to the parents, right? Because if they're better, they're gonna be better at raising healthier children. And so we've done the work, but I think where we're going is gonna be even greater.
Dr. Moyer, whatever you want, or Dr. Anthony, whatever you want, you can have. So we'll.
I think that's a great question, and we've been having a lot of conversations about that as a team. And so one of the next steps on there is the CTSI Pediatric and Youth Mental Health Ensemble. And so that's one of the discussions we've been having, is bringing in partners who have that expertise, because we realize, especially as a parent, if you are not able to regulate yourself, which is really hard when your kid is dysregulated, you know, we've got, it's almost impossible. So you've got to teach those parents those self-regulation skills too, in addition to helping them understand why their child might be behaving the way that they are, and what that behavior is just a form of communication. And so that is, I think, one of the areas that we're moving next, is how do we support those parents at the same time we're supporting those kids.
Hi. I'm wondering if you noticed any differences across the various ethnic groups in terms of the number of ACEs, prevalence of ACEs, and their ability to adapt coping skills and skills that enable them to function better in school and with their peers, etc.
We haven't yet done analyses by race ethnicity for the various survey items, but it's one of those things we'd like to look at. Other people's research has shown that children who are economically disadvantaged, like the vast majority involved in the 4 schools where we worked, are at greater risk of having a high number of ACEs. And their parents also are at greater risk of having a higher number of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So something we'd like to look into more.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Curry. So what's next? Can you tell us a little bit more, each of you if possible, about what you get excited for future research and more community engagement with the research?
As Dr. Gunniger alluded to, our CTSI ensemble has been a kind of great kind of think tank to kind of puzzle out this question of what are the next steps. We're really eager and excited to start a partnership with Boys and Girls Club of Greater Milwaukee to kind of take this kind of first layer of research to the next step. And the question to parents, it's also really helpful that they already have kind of a built-in network of really good engagement with parents, since that has been a bit of a, not a stumbling block, that's not the right word, but that's been a harder audience to connect with for reasons that our school partners are well aware of and know of, and even in our communities that we're working in too. There has been a little bit of a hesitancy to kind of be open to research. So this is kind of a great way of kind of framing that in a more, it is collaborative, it's community driven, right? It's not meant to be kind of a negative or stigmatizing view of research. So we're hoping that will answer that. And then also our Summer of Healing grant that we received from the City of Milwaukee. We're starting our second summer, which will kind of help further bring this research more open into the public. But we're always looking for partnerships, engagements, kind of cultivating new relationships with other entities in not only the school and education space, but also in the clinical settings, the medical services, mental health services areas as well.
Thanks, Paula. We also we're very intentional about the partnerships and the work. I call it parachuting in. When groups drop in, get what they want, and leave. That's not what we're about. We're about building relationships, being transformative, not transactional. So all of the schools that we've worked with, we're continuing to work with, offer supports and services, even beyond the study, but also working with them like Anthony Tresca at Milwaukee Academy of Science, other leadership, Dr. Kerr, her team, to find out what are the gaps, what are other areas of support. For example, parent engagement. We're even doing something at Milwaukee Academy of Science now where we're actually offering support to recess. And we're going to work with kids to actually be ambassadors of the program and teach younger kids, model certain behaviors and things that they should do. Anybody? Yes, right here, Cody.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am actually representing the youth justice system here in Milwaukee County, so I'm curious with regards to both the coaching mentor program and the video game, where you see them on the continuum of behavior. Of course, the youth that I serve, and I call them babies, are on that deeper end of the spectrum. They definitely don't represent all the babies in our community, but their behavior has gotten them in trouble with the law. So with regard to what you're offering here, where do you see it? Do you see it as a prevention to potentially the youth justice system? Do you see it as a beneficial intervention for the babies and the youth justice system? Or even deeper with our most deepest in youth who supersede the county youth justice oversight and end up with our state facilities? Just curious about what kind of interfacing you see as it relates to the youth justice system and the ability of these potential programs to be able to intervene at that level.
Great question. My name is Tim Walford. I'm on the team here at STRYV. Get to work next to this gentleman. Is Judge Ashley in the house, Chief Judge?
Get to leave.
Okay. Because I would have given him the mic, but we're in intervention. We're trying to give these kids tools, families tools, working with big brothers, big sisters, really trying to give them some things to take home. As we heard, we've got a little work to do with working with the families, but that's our new challenge. I'll ask our team, how do we get that? But we're in intervention. We're definitely trying to prevent all of those situations so they don't get into the juvenile system.
So we are also in the works with Judge Ashley, Mayor Johnson, to figure out preventative approaches. Our hope is to start working with more schools. For example, MPS, we're trying to work in the MPS school district to connect with kids. When you start earlier, it gives them more opportunities before we even get to that point. So that's our hope moving forward. So good question. We have one right here, Cody.
Hello, my name is Clinton Ray. I'm with Jobs Work MKE, and I kind of have a two-part question. One is as it applies to the parents. So one of the things that we do is we help individuals that may be struggling, getting through their barriers in life, to not only get that job, but to keep that job through a holistic approach, supporting them, whether it's trauma-informed care, mental health, whatever services that they would also need, transportation, etc. So is there a connection for the parent with opportunities that will support them in terms of that type of continued support and employment that will help stabilize that home so that some of those challenges are not there, but then also the actual front end, or someone might say the back end, as it applies to the children, as we look at them moving forward and helping to guide them in a way that they can see the end result, right? So sort of distance between two areas is a straight line. What does their future look like in terms of employment? And I know for us, we've had some engagement with organizations like MKE Fellows where they're doing that work to make sure that those individuals are ready for employment and that those high school years and being supported with mentors alike. But for those that are not going on to college, we've been that support to say, hey, there's another avenue. There are other jobs, there's other ways that you not only can continue with your employment, but to hold on to it and to grow in an arena that may not be traditional. So that's my two-part question. Thank you.
Anyone? That's a great question, man. I just think as a whole for us, what we want to do is make sure that kids and families have a support system. They have resources. They don't feel like they're working or operating on an island alone, left to figure it out. And it starts with, as we talked earlier, about the relationship building piece and creating a space of feeling safe where families can be vulnerable and open up. And how do you do that? It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to build those relationships. Unfortunately, time isn't always our best friend. So I think we have to be more patient, but also intentional about what the end goal is while listening actively to what they're saying they want and need to be successful. Yeah.
So within our presentation, we've been calling it social emotional learning, which is what a lot of the curriculum is geared at K-12. But that's also known as emotional intelligence, and that's the soft skills that a lot of employers are looking for and or expecting or wanting young people as they enter the workforce. So I think that's maybe one of the gaps areas that our programming can also help, is giving youth and people going into the workforce beyond, looking at other alternatives beyond high school, of giving them the opportunity to develop those skills that are desperately needed and not always taught, right? In the past, they were taught in the home, they were taught through church, they were taught through more community-centered traditional spaces, which aren't as robust as they once were. So now there's other interventions and resources that have to be kind of providing that guidance for our young people.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing. I think one of the things that I think really helped us, and I think is one of the wise things that STRYV365 chose to do, was to partner with schools. Because increasingly schools are taking on that employment readiness piece more and more. Schools like Milwaukee Academy of Science has a whole new strategy. Shout out Trisca Miley, who's overseeing that strategy around workforce development with a heavy emphasis on, yes, we got a bunch of kids that's going off to 4-year colleges, but the 2-year programs and the trades programs. So schools are taking on more and more of that. Where I think the beauty of this is, if the school is doing a good job of that, and STRYV365 is doing a good job of helping them with the emotional intelligence, then not only will they be able to get those jobs, but they'll be able to maintain them. And that's one of the really critical pieces that's happening in Milwaukee. There are a lot of jobs out there, people can't stay in them for very long. And the more they go into the job, get fired, and do that multiple times, they're less willing to continue that process.
Well said. One of the things too we want to highlight quick, future direction we're going is partnership with Leroy Butler. So Leroy wanted to give you an opportunity to share a few words about what we're doing next.
Because if you know me, I do talk too much. I do. I was losing my voice. Man, Packers lost. And I was like, thank you, God, he's losing his voice, so it is good. Well, the thing about me with Brandon is I want to do more things for him, but, like a 5-minute summary of my life story. Single parent, my mom raised me by myself in the inner city, in the projects. Special needs student, so shout out to all the special needs teachers, special education, and learning disability. I was born right in the prime, Duval County. I mean, it's one of the worst housing projects ever for crime. And I've always heard that if a single parent had kids, they're going to be criminals. But two of my brothers were in the military. One of my brothers has a perfect credit rating, which is amazing. I don't know why he put that in the group chat. My sister was a nurse, and of course, played for the only team in the NFL, Packers. But thank you, my one fan. You don't want to get a picture later. But to sum it up, I remember my grandmother told me a lot because when you go to your grandparents' house, there's no filter. And she was like, what happened at school? I said, well, I'm glad you asked, but it was in my class, they were passing around notes to everybody in their class. But I didn't get a note. And I didn't know what it was. She said, what was it? I said, well, Miss Brown, my teacher said that they had a sleepover at little Johnny's house, and I was the only one that wasn't invited. And I didn't really know what a sleepover was. So my teacher kind of explained it to me. I said, well, let me get this straight. So you go to a stranger's house with a backpack, which I don't have, and you just sleep and play games, and my mom ain't let me do that. So it was good, he didn't get it. But my teacher, who's also heroes, she was like, you know, nothing bothers you. And my grandmother said, that's my gift. My gift was, I chose the right leaders, which is my parents, my mom, my teachers, grandparents. And because my grandfather always said, God gave everybody a talent, but you got to figure out what it is. And mine was nothing bothered me. I wasn't, when I used to get bullied for not going to the swimming pool, mainly because I didn't swim anyway, kids would pick at me in Florida. If you don't go to the pool, they think something's wrong with you. But I didn't go because I had braces on my legs and my mom didn't want me to go. And the kids were yelling at me, screaming, saying all this funny stuff. And I said, you guys are trying to get into the pool. I'm trying to get in the NFL. I got plenty of time for that. So now, that's when I learned that the real heroes help people they don't know. My grandparents told me. That's why when I do the butler versus bullying in a lot of schools, I don't even tell them like about, I just tell them what I experienced. This is how I chose to deal with bullying. And I also told them quickly, deal with bullying. What's the difference between bullying and having fun? And I do that. I give an example. Like my aunt lives in Aurora, Illinois. This is before I got drafted. They're huge Bears fans. Huge Bears fans. Now, he calls me and says, oh man, your quarterback light skin or something. And I said, yeah, but you can't spell your head coach's name. Which is Eberflus. That's not bullying. That's having fun. But when 6 or 7 students get together, make up a lie for a kid who's disabled that doesn't really know he's being bullied, and every day you try to make it difficult for them, that's what we don't need. So that's why I started Butler versus Bullying, and that's why actually next week I'm launching Leap into Therapy. Everything has to be let leap for Black bullying, of course. Play up with it. But it is not to tell them what to do, show them what to do. And you can have areas on my app where you can say, okay, how did he deal with depression? How did he deal with being broke? How do you stay out of trouble? What do his friends think? So now I'm a partner with all the kids, not so much as a mentor, but a partner. Because a partner keeps you accountable. My mom always said, and she had anxiety, because every time you go out in the project, she don't know if you'll come back alive. But she had faith in God, and she had faith that I knew what to do not to hurt somebody else or myself. So with STRYV, it puts me on a bigger platform and vice versa. So there's going to be a lot of new programs that kids are going to be able to do that other organizations can't offer them. Mainly because we're collaborating. And you'll be seeing in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to do a huge press conference and press release, but also that the fundraising part of it, and make it fun, like having a sneaker wall, or having other things people can do, and honor our teachers. I love anybody and my teacher, who was my therapist, every day helped me stay focused. And trust me when I tell you this, teachers don't do it for the money. Yeah. They do it because they love kids. And the last thing I'll say, it does frustrate me. It really does. When I see somebody get an Academy Award, win a Super Bowl, get a raise, or do whatever, and they get in front of a microphone, they thank everybody but their teacher, who they spent hours with, 8 to 10 hours a day, for free. And they made it, and they get their award, and they go off and make a TikTok video. So before you leave this space ever, please go and look. Not today, I'm saying before you forget. Please go look at my Pro Football Hall of Fame speech. My 2 teachers in my speech that are still alive. Can you imagine getting that phone call? Without you, there is no Roy Butler. So that's the kind of stuff I want to help bring to STRYV. I love teachers. I want to help bridge the gap financially and give them therapy. They got to deal with a lot. Safety. Sometimes parents don't even thank you for them doing that. But I just want to honor, I appreciate everybody on the panel. I appreciate everybody here. There's just a lot of things you could be doing. So spending any time here means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Lord, thank you. Excited. Apparently, him and I are doing a podcast too, so that'll be interesting conversation. Yeah. Did you replace me already? Come on, man. No. But really excited about everything coming up. Thank you all again for taking time today. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you soon. So thank you.